Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I've got with me here today 2 packets of coffee. So for the coffee connoisseurs out there, the main difference at the moment, as we look at it here, is that one packet was produced in Colombia, as you know, quite well-known coffee producer, and the one is completely locally produced. More or less the same product. It's coffee, right? But for the end consumer, it might actually have a completely different experience and how the product was sold. E-commerce, a growing and booming industry, basically worldwide. Customers, everybody in the value chain, including suppliers, expect fast, reliable service, products of good quality, and the delivery needs to be easy and flexible. Today, we are going to talk about our industry, how it is basically adapting to the changes in relation to online shopping. What are the lessons that we can learn from the journey we've all been on e-commerce? And we're also going to talk about how do we ensure e-commerce related businesses. I'm Alex Terblanche, Head of Business Insurance, VAPs and Distribution at Auto & General. And I'm looking forward to share with you some of our learnings as an underwriter that we have come across in this growing industry of e-commerce today. So over the course of history, change is really the only constant. We've seen economic shifts that have basically changed buyer preferences and technological developments that caused us to think differently about the way we sell products online. It's also made us very resilient as suppliers of goods and services, but also as buyers. And resilience we will definitely need in the future. Changes that will influence the strategies we use to advise, sell, and engage with customers and consumers, changes in the way that we purchase. In older times, we bought from markets. That then went on to become shops and shopping malls, and most recently, we are properly in the age of online shopping. What makes e-commerce so interesting? It's because it does not only consider the handshake across the table. It is far more complex. It talks about how the products are advertised, how we buy, how it is stored, how it is shipped, how it arrives, and most of all, how we are kept informed as the package travels to the destination. It has changed the way we look at purchasing. It's changed the way that we are selling, and it changed the entire experience around logistics. The COVID-19 pandemic opened avenues of convenience for shoppers across all industries. While most of us have become comfortable again to visit the brick-and-mortar shops, the popularity of online shopping and grocery delivery hasn't abated at all. The e-commerce industry in South Africa is estimated to reach 152 billion rands in 2022. The difference between my imported Colombian coffee from South America and the South African bag of coffee from the Midlands is this Colombian bag took me 8 clicks, whereas I had to travel 8 kilometers to buy this bag of coffee. A product produced from halfway around the world reached me quickly through a fast, efficient, reliable service, and from a quality perspective is better in the sense that I had control over the delivery process, flexibility around the product delivery, and ultimately peace of mind. Keep up with the clicks. Indeed, a changing world we're living in. So what does it have to do with insurance? For many decades, insurance customers viewed insurance products largely as homogeneous. They had to choose from a set of available products that were there. But over the last decade or so, the market became more and more saturated with more or less the same product offering, but with an increasingly sophisticated end buyer with a large range of needs and wants. To meet these changes, we need to be nimbler, work faster, make delivering a superior service and experience our absolute top priority. Here's some insight for you. At Auto in General, we've seen that commercial lines customer experience mimic that of a personal lines end consumer almost exactly. Let me explain. On the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the accelerated general consumer digital adoption paved the way for SMEs to use digital interfaces. And in fact, we saw that SMEs and businesses use largely the same platforms that what personal consumers in their own experience use. So therefore, you basically need to deliver at the same level of expectation that this service would deliver in the personal capacity of the consumer. So, Amazon. You all know this entity, arguably the biggest online shipping experience ever, responsible for nearly 60 rands out of every 100 rands spent online. Still growing. It's showing an expected 22% increase from 2020. In the US, respectively, they expect 2 billion sites visits in the last year. What makes Amazon inherently so powerful? It's because of the grip that they have on data. They know exactly what product the end consumer would need at what time, and they then bring the customer close and connect the customer with that product and need at the right time. Out of interest sake, Amazon is set to launch a marketplace in South Africa next year in March, and it's got its sight set on Nigeria soon as well. Bringing it a little bit closer to home, by show of hands, who of you have used Checkers 6060? Quite a lot of you. Such a lovely local innovation. It's a very popular platform currently being used. Kimberly Taylor is almost the brainpower sitting behind this. She's the CEO of Loop. In her final year of studies at the University of Witwatersrand as an engineering student, she came up with an algorithm to solve the traveling salesman problem, a mathematical equation that basically helps to solve the optimal route for somebody to go from point A to point B, thereby optimizing the way that infrastructure is being used to deliver services. The benefit, of course, being a lower cost, and that is passed through to the end consumer. A lovely innovation example of how technology was able to make life easier and more affordable for the end consumer. It's almost hard to imagine that 7 years ago, you would not find anyone standing next to a corner looking at their mobile device, checking on where and how their delivery is tracking. None of that existed as little as 7 years ago in 2015. Q-commerce has now skyrocketed. Q-commerce being the delivery of small goods like documents, food, and over-the-counter medicines. Then the biggest player of e-commerce in South Africa at the moment, everybody knows Takealot. They are followed by Superbalist and Woolworths. And together, these three entities contribute 15% of the total e-commerce revenue in South Africa. The pandemic has actually been good to Takealot, as you can imagine. Their revenue increased 34% to 13.15 billion as at the end of March 2022. And they're set to take on Takealot is set to take on Amazon next year when they launch in South Africa. So how will we service the future in this changing environment? So from an insurance perspective, here are a few takeouts from a customer service perspective that we can implement. The omni-channel approach, critical. Adding new channels to communicate with customers on policy questions and claims. Even thinking about your brokerage. Changing language and documents. The days of complicated insurance jargon is counted. Offering hybrid experiences, a combination of human and artificial intelligence, physical and virtual, combination of the two, and engaging with customers daily or more frequently, but not only once a year. Just as in e-commerce, the one thing we need to keep in mind as an industry as we move forward is that e-commerce, by definition, involves a higher acquisition cost. So we do expect in coming years that there will be increased cost on customer retention at all times, increasing the lifetime of the customer. That can be done through offering simple and flexible services, value-added buy-ups, but products that actually meet customer needs at the right time. And simple servicing models that are digital and easily to access. Just as e-commerce businesses have to future-proof themselves by building diverse business relationships, so too as a broker, you need to consider your insurer and other partnerships to consider how together you can build a model that delivers on these promises for your end customers. So how will we ensure this future landscape? We are going to look at what we believe to be the 7 key types of insurance that businesses in the e-commerce value chain require. General liability. Many of you had more knocks on your front door due to delivery services than what you've ever had before. People step onto other people's premises. If you are a business owner, you still will be required and be exposed to third-party property. Closely tied to that, product liability insurance. Bigger emphasis on the quality of manufacturing. And e-commerces give actually a platform for the end consumers to raise issues around products, to actually to provide feedback on the quality, to even be reimbursed for certain product offerings. It's really a different world for the end consumer in terms of product usage. Added to that, society is becoming more litigious, and there are also, in fact, digital services that provide these customers with the platforms in order to take action against providers of products where they are in some way liable or could be held liable for losses, damage, or injury. Building properties insurance. We see Takealot, for example, making use of a franchise model for their warehouses. Warehousing of goods and depots are still going to be material, and we're going to see an increase of that in even the non-metropole areas or areas wider of the key metropoles in South Africa. Again, like complexity around warehousing and fire risks around contents remain in place, and the ability to be able to insure and manage these property risks remains key. Home-based businesses. Traditional personal policy wordings do not entirely cater for a work-from-home environment. So we've seen throughout the COVID pandemic, particularly in professional services, that a lot of these business owners moved away from the brick-and-mortar shops and actually started their business from their homes. At Auto & General, for example, we've got a product called Auto & General Coffee, where we actually provide cover for the home-based businesses. An example of this would be that there is a content component included for inventory that you keep in your house, but related to your business. Goods and transit insurance. Delivery services and logistics are getting infinitely more complex. The traffic around that nationally is escalating in its complexity. You have everything from a motorbike transferring a single document to heavy haulage trucks going up and down from Rienen. It is a wide scope of different risks to be covered, and we expect that the increase in usage of technology and data is necessary in order for the insurance industry to be able to sustainably insure goods that are being transported. Cybersecurity, it is the top risk for every e-commerce business. It relates to the steal of customer data, credit card information, the installation of malicious software. As an online business, your customer is responsible for safeguarding sensitive customer data. That's where cyber liability comes in. And it's a product that is necessary for any player along the value chain in e-commerce system. Business interruption insurance. I did mention that it is important that the value chain of e-commerce executes fluently, as fast and as uninterrupted. So cover or protection against revenue loss due to any interruption that might be caused by fire-related perils remains critically important. It is, however, a section that we believe needs to be simplified in the market. It's a difficult section to explain. And to my earlier point, it relates to some innovation around the product at large that needs to take place there. Vehicles. E-commerce has changed the landscape of insuring vehicles. Just as an example, with the rise in app-based delivery services, Mr. D, Uber Eats, Bolt Eats, we've seen a rise in motorbike sales. 69% increase in used motorbike sales in South Africa between 2020 and 2022, and 26.7% in 2021 compared to 2020 on new vehicles. Then we also have Uber. 10 years ago, Uber didn't exist in South Africa. 2013, they stepped in, Bolt in 2016, and collectively, they now have approximately 60,000 drivers in South Africa. Insuring these cars is not easy, and I'll show you why. The attached is a graph that shows you the distribution of average mileage driven by the red bars being personal customers and the white bars being e-hailing drivers. That's taken from our own book at Auto in General. You could see that, first of all, the average driver of a Uber vehicle drives significantly more. But from an insurance perspective, that's not so much the problem for us. The problem is the extent to which there is variance in the distribution. The fact that you have such a wide variance of mileage driven makes it very difficult for an underwriter to price these risks correctly. That is direct proof of the need for a usage-based pricing solution and placing future motor risks in the e-commerce industry, where shared assets like Uber and Bolt is being used. So what does it mean? We're saying that these typical businesses that you see on the left-hand side of the slide are typical businesses that are along the value chain of a typical e-commerce business. And that products basically need to be sold on an online platform. Operations coverage, where you still need your fire risks, business interruption, contents, inventory, all of that, plus your general and product liability covers remain core. In fact, liability insurance in particular is going to remain very important. Cyber risk, business owners' policies that caters for your work from home solutions, and vehicle cover that does take care of delivery services and also the wide range of use of these vehicles, such as motorbikes, that has goods that they transport, and goods in transit cover remains key. We see this basically evolving to where insurers would have to make use of user-based pricing in order to be able to price it all or to underwrite it all. It is very important that products and services going forward actually have rewards in place or tied to the product that reward players in this value chain to actually de-risk or to behave in a less risky manner. For example, to drive better or to download software that protects you against malicious cyber attacks. Asset tracking remains important. I mentioned the importance of tracking on vehicles, but also on goods in transit. And finally, value-added services, where in this complex world, particularly for SMEs involved in the e-commerce value chain, insurance policies will need to give access to business owners to help them traverse this world of digital commerce. And Auto in General, we've got a businessist offering embedded in our SME product that, for example, offers business owners a service where they can actually be guided to create an online presence for themselves and their business. In conclusion, we as insurers need to look at our future readiness in order to ensure these arising risks. They are different. They require simplification. We need to understand these complexities in terms of underwriting, and we need to reevaluate the tools we use to do this. But as I said previously, that it is definitely imperative that the change that is required relates to be able to deliver an insurance product that is flexible, that is effective, and that ultimately requires the insurer and the broker to work together and to deliver a flexible solution for the customer in terms of their product and service. Thank you.